Hello everyone, myself Sajna Janardhanan, Faculty Biology, Silver Hills Public School, Calicut. Back again with a new video for the chapter Morphology of Flowering Plants. In the previous video, we have discussed about the parts of the plant, the first part, root. So that has been concluded in the previous video. Now let me start this video with a new topic, that is the second part, the important part of plant, that is about the stem. Stem, the characteristic features of the stem. What are the important characteristic features of the stem? The most important feature, that is the plant part that lies above the soil. Now this is a part which is lying above the soil. The part as it is lying above the soil, we can say it is negatively geotropic. What is negatively geotropic? That is, it is not preferring to move, or positively it is not showing any affinity towards the gravity. That is why we say it as negatively geotropic. It is always growing or moving away from the ground. Next, as it is moving or it is showing affinity towards the light, this is known as positively phototropic. Positively phototropic means it is always showing or it prefers light. It is growing always or it is moving forward to face the light. Now, another one important feature for the stem is, or this is a feature what makes it differentiate from the root. It has nodes and internodes. What are nodes and internodes? When we see a stem, it must be having certain segmented regions on it, which is a slightly bulged portion from where the buds, the branches, the leaves, etc. arise. So these bulged segmented like portions which are seen on a stem are known as nodes. You can see in the picture there are different, that is a picture of a bamboo in which we can see different segments. Each segmented region, that differentiating region, we call it as a node, and the space or the part between two nodes are known as internode, internodal region. So this could be seen only for the stem. So stem is always having nodes and internodes. Now all parts other than roots normally develop from stem. The parts such as leaf, the branches, the flower, fruit, all everything, seed, including seed, it is present inside the fruit or outside the fruit, whatever. These all parts we can see only on the stem. So that is also an important characteristic feature for the stem. So once again, the important characteristic features of the stem, it is the plant part that lies above the soil. It is negatively geotropic as well as positively phototropic. It has nodes and internodes from which many parts of the plants are developing. All parts other than the roots are developing from the stem. So these are the characteristic features that differentiate this particular part from the root. Next is about the function of the stem. What are the important functions of stem? The stem, which develops from the plumule, that is a plant, when the seed germinates, one part is growing downwards, which starts from the radicle, which is the root. The other part which is developing from the plumule, which we call as stem, its main function is, while its growth, all parts of the plants are developing from that, and it is supporting or it acts as a pillar or support for the lateral appendages. Lateral appendages means it can be branches, it can be flowers, it can be fruits, anything can be a lateral appendage. So all these are supported by the stem. That is one thing. Second, it helps for the conduction of water and minerals. We know that the roots, when we learned about the functions of the root, we learned that the roots help in the absorption of water and minerals. It absorbs water and minerals from the soil. Now, this has to reach to the leaves for photosynthesis. It has to be transported. So that transportation, or that is conduction, is done by the stem. The stem, internal tissues present in the stem, the vascular tissues are present. which are helping for transportation of water and minerals to the leaves for the purpose of photosynthesis. Next is the third. The same, the prepared food. Now, the photosynthesis is the function which is happening on the leaves. Thus, the carbohydrate or the food what is prepared has to be transported to all parts of the plant. This is helped out again by the stem. Another type of tissues present in the stem, that is phloem, which is helping for the transport of food to all parts of the plant. So, both ways it is helping for conduction of water and minerals, also the transport of food to different parts of the plant. The last, that is the food what is prepared when excess food is prepared. This has to be stored in the plant. In some plants, the storage of the food is also helped out by the stem. So, that is also a function of the stem. Not all plants, but some of the plants, the storage of the food is conducted in the stem. So, these are the preliminary basic functions of the stem, that is to support all the lateral appendages, to conduct water and minerals to the leaves, and once the photosynthesis happens, in return the transport of food to all parts. That is the second function. The third, it is helping for the storage of the food. So, in some plants the food is stored in the stem part. Can you give one example for that? Sugar cane. We know that sugar cane, the stem part is the part where the storage of the carbohydrate is taking place. This on a process only we obtain the sugar, jaggery, etc. So, sugar cane is a plant in which the storage of food is taking place in the stem. So, one example is that. Next is stem, the basic or preliminary functions we have completed. To perform certain other functions, the stem may undergo certain modifications. So, stem modifies, and these modifications are helped out to perform certain functions such as storage of food and water. In normal course, the storage of food and water is taking place, but in certain plants, the stem after modifications, it is helping for the storage of food and water. So, in such cases, the modified stem is helping for storage of food and water. Next, second function is proliferation and propagation. What do you mean by proliferation and propagation? Propagation, we all know that, vegetative propagation, we know that. Some of the plants, the stem, a part of the stem or a stem cutting is enough for the formation of a new plant, or a cutting is helping out for propagating a new plant. So, very simple, the rose plant, hibiscus plant, etc. By taking a stem cutting, we can produce a new plant from that cutting. So, in such cases it is propagation. In some other cases, a part of the stem, the tissues could be taken out. This on proliferation, that is mass number of cells are produced and thus a new plantlet could be produced. And in tissue culture and all, the stem part is used for proliferating. Proliferation is producing mass number of cells. So, that way also stem undergoes certain modifications, and the modified stem is helping for proliferation as well as propagation. Third, it may undergo certain modifications for procuring support for the climbing plants. If for a plant, if the stem is very weak, the weak stem generally for a supporting process, it may undergo certain modifications on the stem part itself. We can learn it in detail in the coming slides. The next is about the stem performing photosynthesis. We never heard about that. We generally from the lower classes onwards, we have learned or we have heard that photosynthesis is performed by the leaves. But in some plants, the photosynthesis process is conducted by the stem also. For that, the stem may undergo certain modifications. That also we have to learn in the coming slides. The last, it is perennation. So, what is perennation? Perennation is generally if an off season unfavorable conditions comes, they remain, the parts of the plant, that is a stem part, remain dormant for a time, that is till the favorable, it is a sleeping season or hibernating season, that is waiting for the favorable season. So, this is generally known as perennation. For that, the stem remain dormant for certain time, and when the favorable condition comes, the stem will start propagating a new plantlet could be raised from that. So, this way stem is helping for perennation also. So, these all important functions will be conducted by the stem after having certain modifications. So, these are the modified stems which are performing or modified stems that helped out for storage of the food and water, proliferation and propagation, procuring support for climbing, photosynthesis, perennation. Each one we have to study in detail. For that, the stem modification. In some plants, the stem may grow underground. Normally we have learned, and now also I have told you that the stem never grows. Stem is the part which is growing above the soil. So, only in the soil part, above the soil only the stem is growing. But here, in some plants, for undergoing certain functions, a modification of the stem is taking place. That is stem growing under the ground. How comes the stem grow underground? That is ginger, turmeric, etc. The plant stem grows into the soil part and it grows horizontally, and in that region the horizontal part of the stem becomes fleshy, swollen with the food present in it. This fleshy stem which is present under the ground, underground stem, from there the roots will arise. So, such stems we call it as rhizome. Rhizome is an underground stem which is fleshy. So, in such plants, some examples are ginger, turmeric, etc. The plant is growing above the ground, that is above the soil, and a normal plant will be there, but a portion of the plant is growing underground. This is a stem modification. It grows under the ground and it grows horizontally, and this part becomes fleshy, and this fleshy is due to the juice of carbohydrate present in it or the prepared food present in it. So, this way when this becomes fleshy, this underground stem modification we call them as rhizome. Rhizome is commonly seen in plants such as ginger, turmeric, etc. Next one, that is tuber. Tuber also again a modification of the stem which is happening under the ground. For some plants like potato, mainly for the potato this is happening, that is the plant part is growing above the soil, but a portion of the stem is growing under the ground and it forms so many branches. The lateral branches are also developing from that part. Each branch tip will have a swollen portion which is a tuber like. This each branch tip is becoming swollen because of the food storage. So, this way the underground stem, that is itself is a modification, and lot of branches forming it, and each branch tip is an edible part. That one example is potato, which normally is in the shape of a tuber. Tuber is almost swollen, round or oval shape. A normal shape normally for the tubers are round or oval shape, which could be underground stem modification. Next is bulb. Bulb is again here also the stem is growing underground. But here the stem, once it grows underground, from the stem as usually the leaves are arising, the same way underground part of the stem also develops certain leaves. But these leaves are not green in color, they are scaly leaves which are not green in color, which are brownish or some other colored leaves, scaly one, but they are fleshy or swollen scaly leaves. All these scaly leaves are forming from this underground part and they form into a rosette formation, that is all of them will be together. Then it forms into a shape which looks like a bulb. So, it must be having a stem part, and from this bulb part all the fibrous roots are arising. So, onion, you can see the example is onion. Onion must be having a center stem and lot of fleshy leaves are present on it. From the basal portion of that, this is having a fibrous root system. So, this way when the fibrous root system is arising, definitely this part has to be a stem modification. So, this stem modification could be an example for underground stem modification. So, this way 3 modifications could be seen for the underground stem, that is stem is growing underground as a modification, and sometimes it grows horizontally and it stores all the food item in it. Such a horizontal underground stem modification we call it as the rhizome, and in some other cases the plant underground, the stem further grows underground, from that lot of branches are formed, the tip of each branch becomes swollen, a tuber like structure is formed which is for the storage of the food. And this tuber, one example for such a tuber is potato. At the tip of each stem part, each branch part of the stem, it forms the tubers which is underground. So, this is hiding its food under the ground. Next, the third one, again an underground stem modification in which the stem is growing under the ground and lot of scaly leaves are arising from them, and these scaly leaves becomes fleshy and they together forms into a rosette formation which gives a shape of bulb. So, we call it as a bulb underground stem modification. Lot of roots are developing from the basal portion of the stem. So, this is a stem modification which is generally coming under underground stem modification. Next, aerial, that is above the soil. Now, we have told or we have discussed about the stem growing under the ground. The same way the stem which is growing above the ground, how this is modified. When the stem is growing above the ground in weak plants, that is in climbers, creepers, etc., they must be having a very weak stem. So, it is not easy to stand erect, or erect stem is not possible as its tissues are very flexible. So, in such cases the stem may undergo a modification by the formation of a spirally coiled spring-like structure. You can see in the picture the spirally coiled spring-like structure which is known as tendril. We generally call it as a tendril. Tendril means it is a slender spirally coiled stem that is always helping for support. Can anyone give an example for such a plant which must be having a tendril? Very common, certain vegetables, generally their plant parts are having tendrils. Very common vegetables such as bitter gourd. Must have those who are having bitter gourd at home, please have a look for its plant. It must be having spirally spring coil which must be getting attached to the or clinging on to the nearby plants or on the pandals what we put for these plants to grow. And another one, watermelon, cucurbita. So, many plants, pumpkin, all these plants are having a weaker stem, must be having the stem undergoing certain spring-like or coil-like structures which are helping for supporting the weaker plants by clinging to the adjacent plant parts or adjacent nearby supporting agents. So, this way the stem is modified for the supporting system, the spirally with the help of spirally coiled structures. These spirally coiled structures that are supporting the stem, we call it as tendril. It is an aerial stem modification. So, the stem is modified by the formation of spirally coiled structures which we call it as tendril. Next, the grazing animals generally can kill many of the plants. To protect the plants from such grazing animals, the plants may have on their body thorny structures. These thorny structures are the lateral buds which generally in plants the lateral buds will develop into what? Leaf, flower or any other structure, branches, many things. But in some plants from the lateral bud a thorn like structure, a point thorn like structures are forming which are for the protection of the plant. Many plants are there. Mimosa pudica, may not be knowing by the term Mimosa pudica, but this is a plant which we generally say touch me not. Everybody loves to touch that plant as it immediately folds. Touch me not. Touch me not is a plant which are having lot of thorns on its stem. Another beautiful plant, rose, we all are eager to pluck the flowers. So, this plant, to protect the plant or protect the flower, its plant stem is having lot of thorns on it. Same, another one example I can give you, that is bougainvillea, which is also having a bright colored flowers. These flowers also, it is normally prompting people to pluck the flowers. It's not easy to pluck the flowers as its stem must be having lot of thorns. Another one more thing, a fruit, that is not fruit, it's a vegetable, we can say citrus fruit, lemon. The lemon plant also, it have lot of thorns on its stem part. So these are all examples for the thorny plants, and the thorns are helping or protecting the plant body. So it itself is as a defense part. The stem of the plant undergoes certain modifications, that is it modifies into the formation of thorns from the lateral bud region. Next is the stem modifying for photosynthesis. How come stem modifies for photosynthesis? Normally the photosynthesis is a process which is conducted by leaves. But in xerophytes, generally the leaves are not conducting the photosynthesis. Why so? The reason, the leaves normally are having a large surface area and they might be having lot of stomata. But in the case of xerophytic plants, the larger surface area cannot be provided for the leaves, because if a larger surface area is present, automatically number of stomata present on the leaves is also too much. So the water loss will become more, and xerophytic conditions, that is not favorable, as they have to prevent the water loss or they have to reduce the transpiration. So in the case of xerophytes, generally they have reduced spiny like leaves. So they are not able to conduct, and they are not green in color also, they are not able to conduct photosynthesis. So in such plants, for performing photosynthesis, the stem undergoes a modification, that is the stem gets flattened. A flattened stem which will be green in color, that means it contains chlorophyll pigment in it, and that is able to trap the sunlight, that is able to conduct the photosynthesis. So this way, when the stem undergoes a modification, getting flattened, getting green in color, which is able to undergo photosynthesis, is known as phylloclade. So phylloclade is a stem modification, which is an aerial stem modification, which is helping for photosynthesis by forming into a flattened structure which is able to trap the sunlight. So that way, when the stem is modifying for photosynthesis, it is known as phylloclade. Thus, we have come to an end for the aerial modifications. So we have completed the underground stem modification, aerial stem modification. Now the third is subaerial modification. What is subaerial? Subaerial is the region where the plant part which is not under the ground or not above the ground, that is on the ground region, we call it as the subaerial. In subaerial modifications, normally the plants, not all plants, some of the plants, the stem which will grow horizontally and it branches and develop from the base of the stem. So a new plantlet could be raised from the base of the stem, but this plant is growing in a running manner, horizontal way the plant is growing continuously, and in between it is growing vertically also as a plantlet. So this way, when a narrow green horizontal branches are formed, and if it is growing the stem on the above the ground, that is on the ground level itself, if that is growing, it is known as a runner, or it is running continuously. So such modification which is seen normally in grasses are known as runner. So runners are normally narrow green horizontal branches which are developing from the base of the stem, that will be growing horizontally. In between, some of the vertical portions are also growing, which is an example. An example for such a modification is seen in grass. The running grass, we normally call the grass as a running grass itself. The lawn grass, etc., they have the runners which is helping to spread on the ground. So this is a modification which is generally any stem, when you see, it is growing above the ground, which will be growing vertically, and all lateral parts are developing from that. But here a slight modification, that is some narrow slender branches or narrow slender part of the stem is growing horizontally and it is running throughout the area, that itself is developing from the base of the stem. So, such a stem modification we call it as a runner. Next is stolon. What is stolon? Stolon is almost similar to runner, but only difference in runner, from the main or the base of the stem a horizontal branch is developing, whereas in the case of stolon, first the stem grows to a height, then it starts bending, it touches the soil, from that touched portion the roots are developing and a new plantlet will be rising from that. So, a U-shaped structure or something, it is growing or it is running to certain distance, then it touches the soil and that region it is developing a new plantlet, a separate plantlet. So, this is quite common for vegetative propagation in plants such as strawberry, then jasmine, like many plants this is happening. So, it is almost like runner only, but runners are spreading over the soil, whereas here this will grow upward for certain time, it grows vertically, then it bends. After bending it touches the soil. When the moment it touches the soil, from that region it develops lot of roots and a new plant is developing from that region which can be detached from the mother plant. So, this is helping out for vegetative propagation. So, we have already while discussing the stem modifications, I told you that is the stem is modified in certain plants for propagation. So, propagation is helped out by stolon. So, stolons are slender lateral branches that grow upwards for certain time which bend downwards and touches the soil. Examples are normally strawberry, mint, that is one thing, and also another one jasmine. Now, subaerial modifications could be seen for plants, that is some floating plants which are present in water, normally in the lakes, ponds, etc. Example, a cornea, or it is known as water hyacinth. Water hyacinth is generally a weed or it is spreading rapidly. Why is it spreading rapidly? The one reason, this plant also have the stolon like system, that is, or runner like system. It must be having short and thick runners, and from the runners new plantlet is developing. It is spreading in such a manner, that is why a rapid spread could be expected for such plants. But as it is in aquatic condition, the runner of aquatic plants generally called by the term offset. Offsets are runner only, but runner in aquatic plants, and these runners are slightly shorter and thicker, whereas general runners are very thin slender branches. Here aquatic condition, the runners present are short and thick runner, which are normally present for the aquatic condition, which we call by the term offset. So, offset are runner only, but when it comes in aquatic condition, the term is getting changed. So, this way we have come to an end of the stem modifications. So, just a recapitulation of the stem part. What we have to learn in this chapter: morphology of stem. First, characteristic features of the stem. What are the important characteristic features of the stem? That is the part which is growing above the soil, so that we can say it is negatively geotropic as well as it is positively phototropic. It has nodes and internodes, and all parts of the plant are developing from the stem. Next, the normal functions of the stem are supporting for all the lateral appendages, as well as it is helping for conduction of water and minerals. It is helping for the transport of food to all parts, and it is helped out for the storage of the food also. Now, in some other plants, the stem may undergo certain modifications for the storage of food and water, for the purpose of proliferation, propagation, for procuring support for the climbing plants, for conducting photosynthesis, as well as perennation. So, these modifications we have to study in detail, and we have discussed already. When the stem is growing under the ground For the storage of the food, the stem grow underground and it becomes fleshy. Then in such cases it can be of different ways. When it grows horizontally and becomes fleshy, it is known as rhizome. When it grows and it forms lateral branches and each branch tip is becoming swollen, it is known as tuber. When the underground part, the stem grows underground and lot of leaves are arising from them and they all form into a rosette formation. It is not foreseen in onion, which is known as bulb. So, underground stem modifications are there. Then aerial also stem modifications. For the weaker plants, the stem forms some spirally coiled structure for supporting. So, such spirally coiled part which is developed from the stem as a modification is known as tendril, that is helping for supporting. Then sometimes the plants develop thorns on the stem, which is to protect the plant from the attack of other animals. So, these thorns are for protection, which we could see it is rising from the lateral bud portion on the stem. Example for such are rose, Mimosa pudica, that is touch me not, as well as it could be seen for bougainvillea. Next, aerial stem modification, one more is there, that is the stem may undergo photosynthesis in some case. That is mainly for the xerophytic conditions. Xerophytic conditions, the leaves are not able to perform the photosynthesis. So, in such cases the stem gets flattened. The flattened stem is able to perform photosynthesis. Such a stem, flattened stem in the xerophytic plants is known as phyllotaxy. Next is subaerial modifications, that is the ground region. Above the ground, when the stem is rising, immediately the stem is growing. The weak stems are present and they are growing horizontally, they are running over the soil. So, they are generally known as runners. It is again a stem modification which is spreading over the soil. Next, the same runner is spreading over the soil. Here, instead of, it is also a runner, but this modification is the stem is growing to a certain height. Lateral branch will be developing, which grow up to a certain height. Then it starts bending, it touches the soil. From that region, new roots are developing and it can separate into a new plantlet. So, this is helping out for vegetative propagation, and this is quite common for jasmine, strawberry, etc. Next is aquatic conditions, also the runners are present. When in aquatic condition, when the runners are present, that is helped out for separate plants to develop, and thus it will be spreading on the lakes, ponds, etc. The plant could grow, and this aquatic condition, when the runners are present, they are known as offset. So, that is all about the subaerial modification. So, thus we have come to an end for the part stem. Now, our third part is about the leaf. So, we have completed root, we have completed stem. Now, the part what is remaining is about leaf. Leaf. Everybody knows from the lower classes onwards, you might be drawing leaf, you might have seen leaves, you might have preserved leaves for making cards and all. Banyan tree leaf could be preserved and that could be used for making cards and all. Everyone, we all know leaves. We must have seen different colored leaves also. Leaf is very familiar part for us, which is generally a flattened structure which is borne on the stem. It is developing from the nodes. Generally, the color is green because it contains chlorophyll and it is the site for photosynthesis. So, the leaf characteristic features, what are the characteristic features? Generally, flattened structure, borne on the stem, developed from the nodes, contain chlorophyll, and because of that it is the site for photosynthesis. Next, parts of a leaf. While knowing about the leaf, we must know about the parts of a leaf. There are three main parts for a leaf. What are they? A leaf must be having a leaf base, then a petiole and lamina. A leaf, the attaching part for a leaf to the stem, that region is a swollen portion. That is the region we call it as the leaf base. Any leaf, when it must be attached to the stem part. So, that attaching part is known as the leaf base, and to that region, or this must be having a leaf stalk, which we call it as petiole. Petiole is the attachment of a leaf lamina, that is the leaf blade. Entire leaf structure is attached to the stem by a stalk. The stalk is called as petiole. So, a leaf must be having a leaf base, then a petiole, that is the stalk that is attaching the leaf to the stem, and the lamina. Lamina is the leaf blade which is having lot of veins on it, and entire leaf part we call it as lamina. So, a leaf means immediately it should come to the mind. It has three main parts: leaf base, petiole and lamina. Now, on the lamina there are lot of veins present. These veins are arranged in a particular manner on the leaves. So, in the previous, when I show the picture of the plant leaf, it is marked lot of veins are present. These veins are designed in a particular manner on leaves. So, there are two main types of arrangement of veins, and sub veins we call it as veinlets. So, veins and veinlets are arranged in different manner. There are two types. That is, one is known as reticulate venation and the other one is known as parallel venation. So, the arrangement of the veins, based on that it is classified into two. There are two types of leaves. If the veins on a leaf are arranged in a network, that is, veins will form into a network structure, lot of veins here and there, and it is forming into a network structure. This is known as reticulate venation. Reticulate venation is commonly seen in dicot plants. The same way, in some other plants, the veins, all the veins will run parallelly each other. All are straight line, parallelly they are arranged. If the veins are not uneven, or if all the veins are running parallel, such a venation we call it as parallel venation. So, there are two types of venation based on the arrangement of the veins. If the veins are arranged not in an order which forms into a network structure, this is known as reticulate venation, and if all the veins are arranged parallelly, then that arrangement we call it as parallel venation. Parallel venation is common in monocot plants and reticulate venation is common for the dicot plants. So, while distinguishing dicot and monocot plants, the first distinguishing feature about the cotyledons. The second one important characteristic feature for a monocot and dicot plant is all monocot plants must be having parallel venation, whereas all dicot plants must be having reticulate venation. Example, mango, jackfruit, many plants, rose, then hibiscus, all these plants, the leaves if you observe, it must be having a reticulate venation. Banyan tree, the banyan tree leaf, that is the huge leaf which we can see very clearly the reticulate venation. At the same time, if you see for the grass, coconut tree leaf, then banana, all these are having parallel venation. All the veins are arranged parallelly, there is no network structure. So, such plants in which the leaves must be having a parallel vein arrangement, all the veins running parallelly, parallel venation is present, then they are all monocots. So, venation is of two types, that is reticulate venation and parallel venation. So, venation means it is the arrangement of veins and veinlets. Now, there are different types of leaves. We generally have, many times we have seen many types of leaves, colored leaves, colorless leaves, then different serrated margins. So, different types of leaves we must have seen, but we never have discussed or we never have gone deep into that what are the different types of leaves. At least some of the types of the leaves let me explain here. Mainly there are two types of leaves. One is simple and the other one is compound. So, what is a simple leaf? What is a compound leaf? Simple, as it says, it is very simple, no complications, that is it is having an entire leaf structure, an entire lamina could be seen which may not have any incisions on it. If at all incisions are present, that will be very small incisions. Such a leaf which is an entire leaf is known as simple, whereas the compound leaf is a complex leaf, or it is a complicated structure. What makes or what shows it a complexity? A single leaf, this is also an entire leaf in which the entire leaf must be having incisions which is trying to reach to the midrib, or anyway the incisions will be present. So, these incisions when it is present on the leaves which either will be reaching to the midrib or incisions are present, such leaves we call them as compound leaves. So, simple leaf means entire lamina should be present, whereas if any incisions are present on the leaves, you can see in the figure the incisions are present which is giving the leaf lot of cut marks. So, such leaves which are having cut marks, all such leaves we call it as a compound leaf. This way the leaves are of two types, simple and compound leaves. We have to study in detail about the simple and compound leaves. Now, let us discuss about the simple leaf. Simple leaf is a leaf which is having a single or undivided lamina. Undivided lamina means it may not have incisions, and if at all the incisions are present, they may not reach to the midrib, or a very minor incisions could be seen, which forms into a serrate margin like structures. So, this makes the lamina an entire leaf. So, such leaves which are having an entire lamina which may not have incisions, even though incisions are present, that may not reach the midrib. Such leaves are called as simple leaf. Now, next is about the compound leaf. Compound leaf, just opposite to that, they might be having incisions on the lamina, and these incisions are either reaching to the midrib or otherwise it is almost reaching to the midrib, and this makes the lamina to divide into distinct segments. Maple leaf, which you can immediately, that is, which must be having segments, almost uniform segments are present, and almost all segments are of equal size. Maple leaf, papaya leaf, or ricinus. Ricinus is another one plant which leaf is also having this segment. So, all these leaves are having the lamina is having incision, and this incision is making the lamina to divide into different segments. So, when an entire leaf is breaking into many leaflet, that we call it as a compound leaf. Once again, the compound leaf, normally the incisions are present on the lamina, it is not entire. The incisions are present. These incisions makes the lamina to divide into different segments. When it is divided into segments, the entire leaves are breaking into many leaflets or different segments. So, this way an entire leaf concept is totally absent in certain leaves. Such leaves we call them as compound leaf. Compound leaves again are divided into two types. One is pinnately compound, the other one is palmately compound. These pictures are very common for you. You must have seen all this. This is the picture for neem plant, this is for the mayflower, and Alstonia, ricinus, papaya leaf, all these are examples for either to pinnately compound or palmately compound. Let us learn or discuss about the pinnately compound leaf. Pinnately compound means it is entire leaf which must be having a common axis which we call it as rachis. You can see in the picture a single center part, a rachis is present, and this rachis to which the entire leaf must have certain incisions. These incisions or breaks are making it into different leaflets. So, imagine an entire leaf which have lot of incisions that has broken uniformly and made them into different leaflets or different segments. So, this way towards both the sides, if leaflets are formed, that way if leaf arrangement is done, that arrangement we call it as pinnately compound leaf. The very common examples are curry leaf. Curry leaf, the entire leaf, one entire leaf is divided into lot of incisions, divided into many segments by the incisions, and because of that it has formed into many leaflets. Another one example, neem. Neem is also having pinnately compound leaf. So, in pinnately compound, It is having a common axis which we call as rachis or midrib. Rachis is representing the midrib, and the entire leaf, the entire one full leaf must have incisions which is making it into different leaflets. So, and all the leaflets are uniformly arranged towards both the side by pinnate manner. It is known as pinnately compound leaf. One more is there for the compound leaf, which is known as palmately compound leaf. Palmately compound, it is all leaflets. It is also the many segments are formed by the incisions, but they all come to a single common point. If it is like 5 rachis or 5 segments of the leaves are formed, papaya leaf, resinous and many other leaves, tapioca. These are some of the examples, or these leaves are examples. All 5 segments, all the leaflets will come to or attach to a common point. So, such an arrangement, it is known as palmately compound leaf. It must be having a palm shape, 5 finger or otherwise sometimes 6 finger condition like it will be present, and all the leaflets will come to an arrangement which will be there to a common point. Which examples are tapioca, papaya as well as resinous, many maple leaf are examples for the palmately compound leaf. Now, the arrangement of the leaf, how the leaves are arranged on a stem. The leaves are arranged in different ways. The arrangement of leaves on a stem we call by the term phyllotaxy. So, phyllotaxy is a term used for the arrangement of leaves on a stem. This is of this type of arrangement of the leaves are of 3 types. They are alternate, opposite, whorled. We have to study in detail how these arrangements are done, but the pattern of arrangement of the leaves commonly known as phyllotaxy. Alternate phyllotaxy. Alternate phyllotaxy means a single leaf arises from alternately at each node. So, when on a stem one leaf is arising, then to that an alternate manner the other leaf is forming again alternately. So, if a stem is present, first one leaf is coming or which is moving towards left side, then the other will be towards right side, in again alternate. Why such an arrangement is done? This is helping for uniform way of getting the sunlight. So, this way of arrangement we call it as the alternate arrangement. So, alternate arrangement, single leaf is arising alternately at each node. So, this arrangement we call it as alternate phyllotaxy. Next is opposite phyllotaxy. On a stem, here a pair of leaflets are arising, that is 2 leaves are arising from a node and both the leaves are lying opposite to each other. This is seen for rose, guava plant and all. 2 leaves are arising from the node, they are opposite to each other. So, a pair of leaf arising from a node and they lie opposite each other, then it is known as opposite phyllotaxy. The third and the last one, that is the whorled phyllotaxy, WHORL, whorl. A whorled arrangement means always more than 2 leaves are arising from a node and they form a whorl arrangement, that is entire node is having different leaves. So, instead of 1 or 2, first alternate only 1 leaf is arising from a node, opposite 2 leaves are arising from a node, whorled more than 2 leaves are arising and that is covering the entire node by the arrangement of a whorl. So, such an arrangement is known as whorled phyllotaxy. So, phyllotaxy are of 3 types: alternate, next is opposite, and the third is whorled phyllotaxy. So, this is the arrangement. And next, what is the function of a leaf, or what are the functions of leaves? So, we have almost now we have an idea about the leaf. Now, what is the main function of the leaf? The main function of the leaf we all know, photosynthesis. From that is from the lower class onwards we are learning, or we know that the basic function is photosynthesis. So, the leaves are helping for photosynthesis, preparation of the food. Also, that is helping for the storage of the food. Can you give some example for storage of the food in leaves? The picture shows, or pictures are examples. spinach, the red chira. Spinach is an example for the storage of the food in the leaf. Cabbage, another one example. Lettuce. Many examples are there in which the leaves are used for storage of the food. Other than that also, the leaves are performing certain functions by undergoing certain modifications like in stem. That is, the leaves also sometimes form tendrils, which you know, that is the spirally coiled structure which are helping for supporting. So, in the stem where the leaves have to rise, the tip portions normally the leaves never grow. Instead of that, that leaves are modifying into tendrils for the climbing purpose. The same way the leaves must be forming thorns for the defense. Many plants, when it attacks, the plant leaves must be having the thorns on it. And this way the thorns, for the protection of the leaf, protection of the plant, the thorns are developing on the leaves. That is again for defense, that is a leaf modification. Fleshy leaf formations are taking place for the underground stem modification, as in the case of onion, garlic, etc. The leaf, the scaly leaves present in it is for the storage of the food, and the fleshy leaves are generally for the storage purpose. That is again a leaf modification. But the stem is modified and in the form of bulb, and the leaves are formed on it in a rosette form. That leaves are fleshy leaves where the storage is taking place. The last, that is the trap. Leaves must modify to form a trap structures. Many traps are there to catch the insects. They might be having tubular, as in pitcher plant, pitcher shape, then bladderwort, then many other plants, many other forms are present which are a modification of the leaf, and these leaves modifications must be having some nectar in it which attract the insects, and when the insects fall on it, the insect eating plants, generally the leaf is modified to trap insects. So, these are certain modifications of the leaves. Once again, the leaves are modified into tendrils for climbing purpose, leaves are modified or thorns are developing on the leaves, that is for the defense mechanism, and in some cases the fleshy leaves, the scaly leaves or fleshy leaves are there, the leaf is for the storage purpose, and in some plants, especially insect eating plants, pitcher plant, etc., generally the leaves are modified to form, or leaves modifies into a trap which is helping to trap the insect. So, these are leaf modifications. Thus, we have come to an end of the session by completing 3 parts of the plant. We will catch you up later with a new video session. Thank you. Bye.